All right. Thanks for joining the call. So this is Edmund.
Yep,
Yeah, and he is with Reality.eth.
yep.
And today we're going to go over their pretty unique solution. I mean, would you guys say you're an oracle or is it?
I don't know. We were an oracle when we started, but then people moved the terms around a bit on us.
Yeah.
Um, so we started what was the first smart contract oracle. Reality Keys was our first product.
Yeah, and that
Um,
was yeah, would love to hear the history because I mean that was what 2013, 14?
2000, yeah, 2013. I think we were building it and then released early 2014. Um,
And what was that
so
built on?
that I mean, it was a very simple kind of trust-based system
Right.
written in Python, but it was designed to work with Bitcoin.
Oh, cool.
So because Ethereum hadn't shipped at that point,
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't
stuff
think
like
Ethereum was an idea
Mastercoin.
at that point. It was
Yeah, yeah. So we had this technique used where what we do would be for a binary proposition, we would release two public keys, um, and then you could make whatever transaction you wanted on the Bitcoin network, and then we'd wait for whatever event it was that you were looking at, and then we'd release one of the private keys corresponding to what happened.
sure.
Um, so you can use that in Bitcoin. You can lock up some money and say, with my signature plus the yes signature, or your signature plus the no signature, this money can be moved. Um,
Cool. Did you get any traction on
no,
it?
hardly any traction. I mean, it was just so hard to build.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's like I couldn't
Anything.
remember anybody building really anything. It was
Yeah,
um no, but that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Everyone was saying, okay, this is how it could be done, and this is all possible.
Yeah. Did you guys
And,
try
and
and
it was possible. We
you guys
built some
like
stuff
try and
ourselves.
raise money on it or anything?
No, we didn't try to. It was we had like a sponsored event or something. I think it was used for like doing stuff that big. But we never tried to kind of raise money as a business. The idea of the business there was that we would use kind of and we'd start by pulling stuff from an API, and then we'd have kind of an arbitration service. But firstly, we didn't have users, and secondly, if we had users, we'd never have needed anything to be arbitrated because the APIs were basically okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess so walk me through. So you were on the Bitcoin network, it was this sort of proof of concept type Oracle to create
Yeah.
smart contracts. How did you sort of migrate over the years onto Ethereum and now you're on
Well,
multiple?
what happened, which to my great surprise, was that Ethereum shipped a network, and so as soon as that happened, well, the first thing we did was to start telling people how that you could have used reality keys kind of on Ethereum, and we did release some prototype stuff to do that. But what we saw happening with Ethereum was that there were a bunch of people dealing with the problem of, you've got some data on a website and you want to get from the website to the blockchain, right? So kind of the bridge problem, which is what I think some people nowadays kind of talk about the Oracle problem, thinking of mainly that problem of there's some kind of API. We trust the people who are publishing the API, or we trust some combination of the people who are publishing these APIs, but they're just not publishing them in a form that the blockchain can understand, that a contract can understand. So we saw a couple of other projects were starting up that were doing stuff like that. There was Oracleize back then.
Yep.
Um, I don't know if they're still going.
They're P network now.
P Network, because they were improvable. They were doing, yeah,
Provable and yeah.
right, yeah,
I just saw
um,
him. He was out at a conference. Thomas, who runs it.
yeah, yeah,
He's still around, so it's good.
right, yeah,
I'll have to get him on
yeah.
for sure.
So there were those guys, and there were a bunch of other projects that were looking at this problem of how do we get stuff from APIs. Um, and the more we looked at the problem, it just seemed like there were loads of use cases where we just couldn't find an API that we trusted enough that would give you just the information that you wanted to settle whatever it was you were trying to settle. And also that you could be confident would still be around, and the terms of service would allow you to do what you were trying to do. Because this is always something that terrifies me with a lot of kind of API kind of usage, is that if the provider of the data doesn't intend for their data to be used in that way, then they could stop you doing it,
Sure.
And often if you squint at the terms of service of these API systems, probably you're not allowed to do what you're doing. Obviously right now, because everything's DeFi, right? Nowadays, a lot of people are getting data off exchanges and stuff, and data like that, obviously they intend it for it to be used in this way, but obviously
Sometimes I mean, that's like I know, like,
yeah.
basically, like, if you ask the exchanges, can we use your API for an illegal derivatives
Right.
exchange, I'm pretty sure most of them would
Right.
say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Or even, can we use your API? We have no idea what they're going to do with it. We're just going to put this data on chain. Who knows what anyone's going to build? Even there, they at least they want some considerable upside to have any kind of legal liability that they might have. So anyway, so I figured the whole API problem didn't seem like the complete solution to the problem. Let's put it that way. And there were other people working on it. So what we wanted to do was to make a way to create information, right? So you can just put in a natural language question. If you want to, you can reward people for answering the question, and then we have an incentivized way to get the right answer to that question.
yeah, I mean, were you guys like, would you say you guys were more of a prediction market, like kind of like Augur back in the day, or?
Well, so we've never been like a market. We've always been trying to just supply data. But there are some elements of the way the system, I guess when we get into the way the system works, there are some elements that are sort of a prediction market on the answer.
Yeah, so I guess we can jump right in then, I guess. But before we start, I like to ask, like, what was like your biggest misconception, or like, how has your views of like the Oracle problem changed over the years? And what would you say is the biggest thing?
I guess two things. One is that there's a lot of stuff now that is working in practice that I figured kind of, and I still think kind of doesn't work in theory, right? So like
I know what you're talking about, so it's cool.
there's a lot of reliance on trusted parties, which people are doing, and like back in the day we'd have said no, you can't do it that way because there's a trusted party, but people put in trusted parties and it's okay, and generally they don't get robbed. And
well, you almost just, I feel like a lot of times they just hide the fact that there's a trusted party for long enough that you get some adoption,
Right. But if you think, okay, what are the exploits we know of that happen because trusted parties doing oracles lied? There were probably some, but there aren't a lot. If you compare that to like what are the exploits we know of because it was doing a trick with like getting prices off a market and somebody gamed the market. We know loads of those kinds of examples, So a trusted party sort of works in a lot of like better than I'd have expected, put it that way. And likewise, like in governance, there's this situation where you're making basically most of the governance mechanisms we see out there right now are kind of shareholder democracies, basically.
Sure.
Pretty much, right? I mean, they may have some other mechanisms, but basically they're shareholder democracies, and that also seems like, in theory, a lot's going to go wrong with that kind of setup. But in practice, a lot of good projects are doing it, and it's not breaking right now. So that's one thing that I kind of wouldn't have expected. I just didn't know how well that was going to go. Then the other thing that I think where my thinking has evolved is that increasingly I feel like kind of the Oracle problem and governance problems are kind of the same problem.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get into that later, but like, I feel like the Oracle problem is really just sort of boils down to a governance problem.
How can you make good decisions, right?
Yeah, and how do you stop that being captured?
Right. Cool. Okay, so let's get into how you guys solve. So like, for an example, what would be a good example? What's your typical, I guess, example of a question that you guys would ask? So I guess we would have.
Okay, has my office burnt down? Right. Let's say I might have an insurance
Has my
premium.
office. Okay.
Has my office burnt?
Let me switch over to speaker view so people can see. But so yeah, so we'll have, I guess, we have Ethereum network over here, and then you have some off-chain information. So some off-chain API over here, right? Well, I mean, like, has my office burned down? Like, that's a tough one.
That's the thing. So if you were trying to do that with some off-chain API, you can't.
Right.
There's no off-chain API that will tell you if my office has burnt down. The best you might be able to do is you might be able to get like a report from the Japanese fire department or something, which will be a PDF, you know, like, or a fax. And maybe somebody can sign off on the fact that they saw this PDF or something. But basically, there's no API. So what we've got to do is somebody's got to find out. We've got to create that information, right, and put it on the chain. It's not just that we have to take some information that's on a web server and bridge it to blockchain. We have to actually find it, you know, create the information of whether my office is burnt down. It's fairly public information. Anybody can look and see if my office is burnt down.
So, okay, so like, I guess we can back up. So I guess if we're going with this question, so the user would come, so you're the insurance protocol, and you would ask,
right,
did Edmund's house burn down? So this will be the user over here. Do they pay to ask a question?
So they don't pay us. They don't pay the contract. They don't have to pay the contract.
So they would,
if you want somebody, if you want somebody to go out and find the answer for you, then you can pay and you can put up what we call the reward for the answer to the question. But in this case, since if it's an insurance case, probably you've got the insurer who doesn't want to pay, and you've got the claimer who does want to pay. So probably whichever of those guys benefits from getting the answer, probably they will go in and put the answer in there. So you don't actually need a reward in this case.
Okay, so reward.
And actually, we hardly ever see anybody set a reward. They always.
You see people just putting it in themselves.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so they would.
One of the parties will put it in. Yeah.
They would ask a question, which is the insurance question, to the smart contract, and then. And then what happens?
Right. So then at some point somebody says, "I'm going to answer this question," and they send the contract and answer. And when they send the contract and answer, they need to put up a bond.
How much is the bond?
Okay, so depending how this is set up, when you put in the question to the system, you can set a minimum level of the minimum bond that it should accept. But you don't have to. Like, the contract will let you do it either way. So if there's no minimum bond, then just any bond can go in there.
Okay. So what's like a usual one in the system, like 1 ETH or?
Probably at that point, not that much. Like, probably at that point, more like let's do it in dollars, since the Ether moves around. Like, more they do it in ETH, but let's say, you know, $10 or $50 or something.
Oh, okay. So it's not restrictive for anything.
Right, but it really depends on your system. I mean, so the role of the minimum bond is just that everybody who is interested in the outcome, somebody has to be watching in case you put in a fake answer to the right. So that's the role of the minimum bond. Is we don't want to make you have to watch for some trivial amount of money. I guess when we get to the next step, you'll be able to see why this is.
Yep. Okay. So then he puts the answer, and then what's the? I know a little bit. There's a waiting period. So what's that?
Right. That's right. So the most common outcome is they put in the answer, and then there's a waiting period, which was also something you set when you asked the question. Okay. Yep. And so the most common case is you put in the answer and the bond, the clock starts ticking, it gets to the end of that waiting period, and that's the answer, and it's done.
Cool. And
so that's kind of the happy case, right?
Use it, and that's good. So it's very optimistic in that sense. And
yeah, that's right.
That's right. Cool. So then, obviously, I'm guessing there is like now, if it's not right, let's walk through.
If it's not right, anybody can come along and they can challenge the answer. And when they challenge the answer, they have to double the bond. So they put in what they think the answer is at double the bond.
Okay.
And that resets the clock.
Answer.
So it's going to start ticking again.
Is it the same wait period?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, just goes back to 0.
And then it would just keep circling this?
Yeah, and then just keep going for until somebody gives up.
Okay.
Or to arbitration, which we'll get to in a second.
So it would just basically keep going until somebody gives up. What's the longest one you've got? What's the highest it's got to?
I think the most escalated one we've had was the Trump issue, which ultimately went to arbitration. There was an argument about whether Trump had won the election, where there were some, I think, sane people on one side and absolute lunatics on the other side. So yeah, that went, how much did it go? I think it went like 4 or 5 escalation steps.
Okay.
And then it went to arbitration, which we can talk about.
Okay, so then what? Yeah, no, I mean, I like this even in general. Like, this is a system that sort of, it would eventually lead to whoever's willing to pay the most money wins, right?
Right. If you don't have the arbitration system, so then we've got what we call the backstop, which is the arbitrator contract.
And you set that whenever you set it up too, right?
You set also, yeah, when you set the question, you say, this is the contract we want to use to arbitrate.
Okay, and how does it go to arbitration?
So somebody pays the fee to the arbitrator.
Oh, so at any point you can kick it off to the arbitrator. That's
right. At any point you can kick it off to the arbitrator, but normally what you do is you'd have a very expensive, slow arbitrator. So at any point anybody can pay the arbitrator. But let's imagine that the arbitrator charges $10,000. I think Kleros were charging like 20,000 something for the Trump issue. But I mean, it's set up so they can be expensive. That's kind of the idea. So at any point, anybody can go to the arbitrator. But if you've put in, let's say you've put in $10 and I think you're wrong and I put in $20, and then you want to go to arbitration, what's going to happen is that even if it rules in your favor, you've paid, $10,000 to the arbitrator, and you've got your $20 back, and you've got my $10. So obviously you don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to keep escalating until there's a lot of money in the pot, right? And then at that point, then you can pay whatever ungodly sum you like to the arbitrator.
Because I would get your pot as well.
Sorry?
Because I would get your pot as well as mine, right?
That's right. Yeah. There's a little bit of complexity in the case where there are different people giving different answers, but the basic concept is that the person who gives the correct answer gets the money from bonds that were posted kind of earlier.
Nice.
Yeah. So what you do is you just keep escalating until you get to, let's say, if the arbitrator is $10, keep escalating to $20,000, $30,000 or something. Make sure there's that much money in the pot. Then you go pay for arbitration, and when that rules in your favor, you'll take the other guy's bonds and you'll make a profit.
Nice. And then, okay, yeah, I mean that, and then arbitrator. Or I guess it's same with like if you're the last guy to put in money, you get you get the whole pot, right?
If you're the last guy, if you're the only person
arbitration, and you're the last guy.
If you're the person who requests arbitration, that's kind of considered the same as you putting in the final correct answer.
Yep.
Assuming it rules in your favor. Now if there were previous answers, let's say if there were previous people, let's imagine that Alice puts in 10, Bob puts in 20, then Charlie Alice kind of gives up because she doesn't have any more capital, but Charlie comes in and puts in 40. In that situation, we actually pay kind of all the way up the chain. So basically, you're guaranteed that if you put in the correct answer, you would always get, you would always make a profit. Is the way it's kind of set up.
So other people can come in and are incentivized.
That's right.
Play the game.
That's right. Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah, no, I'm wondering if there's like any game theory there to where you could like create bad contracts and get people to like basic, but I guess it just comes down to like, if you break the arbitrator, then you would want to gain
exactly.
people.
That's right. So when we talked about, it's kind of like a prediction market.
Yep.
This is kind of a prediction market on what the arbitrator would do if we asked them. Is ultimately what we've got. And at least game theoretically, that's what we've got.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a cool system. I guess what would be kind of the incentive for people to be monitoring it? Do you guys have any sort of pieces there?
So one of two things. Either there's a reward that was put in for the question, and the other is that you are in some way interested in the outcome.
Yeah.
So if it's the insurance thing, then you're the insurance company. And if I'm saying my office burnt down, you want to just check every day and make sure nobody is claiming that their office burnt down.
Yeah. And yeah, so what is the arbitrator?
Right. So the most common one that's used is Kleros, which is
we had them on like 2 episodes ago, so
yeah,
viewers should be familiar.
yeah. So Kleros is very, very commonly used. The other thing that we've been seeing recently, which I didn't expect as a use case, but people seem to be happy with it, we'll see how it works, is people are actually doing it without an arbitrator. When they've got the bonds payable in their token, and the question that they're trying to answer is, what was a vote of our token holders in Snapshot? So somebody did an integration with Gnosis Safe. I guess the Gnosis Guild built this. So I don't know how familiar you are with Gnosis Safe. It started out as like a multi-sig wallet.
Yeah, it's super familiar. So it's
it evolves in this kind of DAO tool, right? So there's a module now in Gnosis Safe where you can you use Snapshot to do like an off-chain vote, and then you use Reality.eth to tell you the result of the Snapshot vote, and that's what actually connects it to the makes the gears turn and makes the actual money move, or whatever it is you're managing. So if you're doing that with your own token, and it's basically a vote of your token holders that you're trying to find out about, then in theory, once you get a majority of your token hold, like the highest bond you can get is a majority of your token holders. So if you're trying to work out what a majority of your token holders say, then that's probably okay to just
But it would so like yeah, because I guess it would just push it off. Like it's supposed to be this off-chain vote, but in worst case scenario, it actually turns into an on-chain vote where you're all just doing it this way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So no, that's cool. So like you're seeing some people do like token holder voting.
Yeah.
Because it's actually interesting because you guys are one of the few Oracle or settlement protocols that doesn't have your own token.
Right.
Any reasons behind that, or just?
It doesn't need one. It works without a token, so we don't need one. So that happened. There is a thing we're working on which does need a token, but
yes.
I'm really not enthusiastic about the whole process of but yeah, so that what we're working on is kind of is a whole network, a whole forkable network, which I don't know if we've got time to talk about that.
I'll have to erase it. I need more board space. But no, I'd love to hear. But I mean, I don't think there's anything actually else on the main protocol, right? This is kind of it.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that's it. And and the cool thing about it, so it's it's a very simple system.
Yeah.
It's very easy to deploy on new networks. So for example, we've got a whole load of stuff going on Gnosis chain right now. You know, the XDAI chain. So we put a copy of Reality.eth on there, which is very easy to do. Then that uses Kleros as for arbitration, but it uses Kleros across the trains, right? So we have like a the actual Kleros token holders and all that stuff. They're all on the main chain. But because we've got this setup, we hardly ever have to talk to Kleros, right?
Right.
We only ever have to go to Kleros if there's a this huge escalation. It's gone up to $30,000. So in that situation, it's really convenient to only then have to go across the chain and deal with the complications of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you guys, like, I know for Teller, like, it's really hard. Like, whenever like the downside there is, I guess you guys are plug and play, but you're sort of tied to where Kleros goes and what chains they can support. Or do you guys support other ones too?
That's right, because via well, you can do it via proxy. I mean, we only have Kleros on the chains that Kleros deploy a proxy to.
Yep.
So you don't want to get them to do that. You could, if you want to do your own token holder voting or whatever, you can do anything else as an arbitrator on any chain that we deploy to.
Yeah. No, and then I guess this may be a dumb question before we do the fork one, but how do you guys make any money? Like, do you guys make any money off this or no?
We don't worry about the little things,
That's awesome.
We get some grants and stuff. So we got, let me think, initially we got a grant from the Ethereum Community Fund, as it was.
Yeah.
It's now defunct, but that back in the day we had that, and then we had some funding from Gnosis, because it's quite a big part now of the Gnosis stack. And then we've had little bits of funding from networks that we deploy to, right? We had they have like developer grants, so we had some funding from Polygon. We had and then a couple of projects that wanted who was it? I feel bad, I've forgotten the name of the project. It's now defunct anyway, so they don't care. But there's a project that funds our ERC20 development. So people who have wanted features, they'll send us money.
Nice.
And it's a tiny little team. It's like me and another guy I sometimes use, and I get the design room where I need design work done, which happens once every 3 years or something. So it's it's an extremely low burn rate. We continue this basically. We don't really need to do anything. I mean, it's a contract. We have little bits of like front end deployment we have to do to keep things running, because the infrastructure just gradually changes. But it does have this. The difference with a lot of projects is it doesn't have like a stall speed really. Since there's no token, there's no reliance on a community. It's great to have a community, but you don't rely on a community, and that means that you don't have to worry about what happens if the project loses steam, right? What happens if
if you go away?
All these token projects, right? They come and go, right? All these projects go away, but if you build on this, you don't quite know that Kleros is going to be there, although Kleros is very very good project. It's almost definitely going to be there for a long time. But you don't really have to worry about it. It's basically a piece of software. It's not a protocol. It's not a network. It's a piece of software.
But theoretically, a protocol should be a piece of software too, right?
Well, what is it? A protocol is a piece of software that defines the way that people deal with each other, right? But then, yeah, okay. But a blockchain protocol needs the people to be playing their roles,
Yeah, I mean, to me, this one, like, it's kind of just like you could make this like an EIP or something, as far as just like how to do dispute methods, since it's so so customized. Like you could actually there's like some slight differences here, but it's almost identical. Like you could build Teller with this,
right?
And it would be like if you just had like the arbitrator as our governance contract, and you pay the bonds and the stake in Teller tokens, and this guy had staked, like you have Teller, and it's like so like it's pretty cool. And then I mean I would love to hear your thoughts, because we heard Kleros say it, and we say it as well. So one thing that you could say about wanting to have your own token is that by having your own token, if you crash this system,
Mm,
the person gets to steal the money still. So
mm.
like ETH is still valuable. Whereas if you have, Claros would say like you have to use Claros token because then if you break it, at least it's all worthless,
Yeah,
and it adds some more incentive there.
yeah. That's kind of true up to your kind of your security bound, right? Up to the value of the tokens. Yeah. So the problem with oracles, and this was the problem that that Augur I thought had a really good go at cracking. I don't think they completely cracked it, but they had quite a good solution. But I mean the problem is that with an oracle, so if there's more money at stake, with an oracle that's governed by some kind of token, if there's more money at stake on the oracle than the value of the tokens, or probably half the value of the tokens, or in some situations less than half, then it's profitable to break it, right? Now, obviously, if you're actually using the governance token as your money, then that's not so bad. So that's part of the next thing that maybe I could talk about with the forking networks and stuff that we're doing. But its fundamental problem is you have this economic security bound where if there's more money at stake than the value of your tokens, you can profitably break the oracle.
Well, assuming a pure market cap vote or something.
That's right. But I mean, nearly everything I've seen kind of comes down to basically a market cap vote. I mean, you can put in trusted parties, and you can put in kind of shelling games and things to.
Well, usually it's just a multi-sig, so it wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
Anyway,
then you're fine.
Right.
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah. But so anyway, the problem is you've got the security bound, and what's worse with oracles is you don't actually know how much money is at stake. You never know what is being secured by your data.
Yep.
It can be completely secret. There may only be 2 people in the world who know about some contract they've got that's secured by your data, and you have no way of finding that out.
It's always impossible to calculate what is the profit to break your oracle because you have no idea.
Yeah. So Augur built this thing, and they have this kind of measurement within the protocol where they try to work out how much money is at stake. And once I built like a connector so that you could use Augur as the oracle for our system.
Oh, nice.
And one of the devs is like, cool, and the other guy's like, no, what do you do? You'll destroy Augur. It's like you're a parasite off Augur,
Yes.
Because you make it profitable to attack Augur then. And the Augur token holders most of the time don't even get the money, right? Because most of the time, Augur isn't even called. It's only called if something's escalated to arbitration.
Right.
So yeah, that was
cool. All right. Well, let's do the forking one quick, and then I think.
So this isn't something we ship. This is something that I'm working on and hoping to ship, and that
if you want to share,
yeah. So what I want to do is, what we'd really like to do is when we've escalated, if let's say we're doing a thing on Ethereum, once we escalate high enough, what we want to do is fork Ethereum.
You want to fork,
right? What we'd really want to do, like ideally, if we had the powers to do this, right?
Yes.
That would kind of solve our problem, right? Let's imagine we're arguing about whether my office has burned down. We escalate. It gets to some point. We have, I don't know, we have some token holders voting on something. And somebody does a 51% attack on that token, and they've got more than 51% of the tokens. And there's some ether at stake, right? So there's some ether at stake on this contract. What we really want to do is we want to fork Ethereum into 2. In one version of Ethereum, we had one outcome, and in the other version of Ethereum, we had a different outcome. The winner on either side has got their ether, except that one of the systems they've got their nonsense ether based on some lie, on the other version, they're good ether based on the truth. And clearly everybody wants to use the good Ethereum and not the bad Ethereum, so everybody uses that, and then they ignore the bad fork. So that would kind of solve the Oracle problem if we could do that. We can't do that because we can't fork Ethereum. So what we've got to do is we need to make a whole ledger and fork the whole ledger. We need to make a separate ledger. We can do it as a layer 2.
Well, I mean, this has been the gold standard. Like Augur had sort of forking with their token,
yeah.
Right?
They had forking the token. That's good with the token, and that's good if you make your bets in the token.
Right.
But then you kind of lose composability, right? Because even if you start using Augur as money, a lot of the other contracts wouldn't be able to handle forking, right?
But this Claros is planning on implementing forking as well. And they had, and it's a similar problem. Like, you would actually need to, in the end, like, have an oracle afterwards tell you which chain won.
Right.
And then you're back to the whole problem of, well, what's that oracle?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the point is that from the point of view of any native asset on that chain, right, the native assets exist on both forks.
Right.
So, in that sense, the users know what chain won, because the concept of one isn't even correct, right?
Well, you don't have to fork. I'm talking if you fork the token contract like Claros or Augur would do.
Yeah.
Like you could theoretically, like, then you would have to have like automatically create Uniswap pools, and you could check which one holds the most value in a week.
Right.
And
then, but holds the most value also just kind of moves just kind of repeats the problem, right? If you're looking at what holds the most value, then if you can buy 51% of the tokens, you can also trade to make it look like you can buy the tokens for more than they're worth. And you can trade to make it look like they're more valuable than they are.
Well, don't all these systems, like blockchain in general, come down to like money equals truth?
Well, not entirely. I mean, because think about the Ether versus ETC fork.
Sure.
From the point of view of an ETC user, ETC is the true Ethereum ledger, right? The other one is fake Ethereum ledger. Those guys, they've got all their ETC, right? From their point of view, ETC is functioning correctly. Now, it may be that their ETC aren't worth much, but that's a different problem that the blockchain doesn't promise to solve.
But I mean, like the way that ETC won, like obviously there's some dev interests and stuff like that. Like time is money as well. But like back to like normal proof of work ones, it's like which one has the most hash power over, after a certain period of time is usually the one declared the winner, right? And then that's the one the exchanges support, and it's good to go.
Well, the exchanges mostly support both of them. I mean,
right.
And I mean, right. And if you build the thing right, then any decentralized exchange will also be able to support both of them. So if you build the thing as a layer 2 system,
right?
So you've got 2 ledgers, and you fork both of the ledgers, and they both have a governance token. The governance token is on mainnet, and that's split into 2. Then your decentralized exchanges can just support those very easily.
Yeah, no, we looked at doing something very, very similar with the forking, and then it was just like too complicated of a build. And
that's right. Well, this is also so what I found when I looked at it, that doing on top of an existing ledger is it's not that it's crazy. It's a little bit complicated to build, but it's not just that. It's that you lose composability with the rest of the ecosystem, because all of the other any other token that may be holding your token that you just forked needs to know what to do with those tokens, right? So let's imagine I've got, you and me have got a Gnosis safe sitting there, and we've each got right, so the Gnosis safe. Well, if it's 2 people, it's okay, but for some reason I have some rights to some money in that safe. That safe suddenly finds that it's got some other token there. Or it doesn't even know it's got a token there necessarily, right? It's just, if you ask the token contract says, hey, this safe owns 100 of me. but the contract doesn't know what to do with these 100 things that it owns, you know. So yeah, we looked at doing it that way with a token on the mainnet, and that was originally what we were going to do. But it just seems like you you break composability and you really can't make it work right. So that's why what we now want to do is just fork an entire down ledger, take a whole layer 2 system.
But then I guess what would be the consensus mechanism there? Well,
it's layer 2. You don't need a consensus mechanism for a layer 2 system. You just need to send a proof to the layer 1 chain. So what you should be able to do is take at the point where you fork, you have 2 ledgers. You have you clone the contracts on layer 1. You have your 2 ledgers and correct proof to send to both. So this is the other nice thing about layer 2 systems, that they kind of have the same property that Reality.eth has, which is that you don't necessarily, at least for the operation of the thing, you don't need a community, right?
Well,
anybody can send in a correct proof.
Roll up.
Yeah, like a ZK roll up or an optimistic roll up. Either of those. Either of those, you don't need to manage consensus, really. You just need somebody to send in proofs.
Well, you would need like a sequencer, right?
You need a sequencer. You need somebody to sequence.
Yeah, but who's that?
Well, anybody can sequence, and
Sure.
If anybody can do it and it's profitable to do it, then generally we assume that somebody will do it, right? Assuming somebody cares.
Right.
If nobody cares, then it doesn't matter, right?
So you would basically just fork Ethereum into these 2, or not fork your contract onto these.
Not Ethereum. What we do is we take 2. So we make a new ledger. We make a new layer 2 system, just like
imagine the whole Reality is on a new system.
So Reality.eth goes, but also we have to boil the entire ocean. Any contract that you want to have reliable data is going to live on this new system.
But that's the hard part, though. That's like what we've run into, though. Then,
yeah,
how do you get it back to your chain? It would be
just leave it there.
Yeah, no, but we're not there. They're like, like, I don't want to go to your chain.
Yeah, have to go to our chain, but you don't have reliable oracles.
I know. No, that's like.
Anyway, so I just think that the world should have a system with reliable oracles.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody is going to use it or not, but I think that it should exist. That's what I'm trying to build.
No, that's awesome. Okay, I can switch back to gallery. Or hopefully people got to see. I erased a little bit of it, but this was. I think we got a really good idea of what Reality does, and I love it. It's super simple. There's no token. You've been around forever doing this stuff, and yeah, like, just thank you for kind of imparting your wisdom on the Oracle space. We got to get more of you. So, any final words? Where can people find out more? What can we sort of do?
Well, just go to reality.eth limo. Don't go to .eth link because it's all broken. On reality.eth, we've got links to the documentation that should tell you everything you need to know about how to use it. There's also a link to the Discord. Any questions you've got, just jump in. And that should be all it takes. It's designed. It should be really simple to integrate. It doesn't cost you money to use. Nice. It's working great for a whole bunch of projects. So cool. Please give it a try.
Super cool. Yeah, thank you very much. So I will pause it.